Hey folks, it's Marvin Cash, the host of The Articulate Fly, and we're back with another Southwest Virginia fishing report with Matt Reilly of Matt Reilly Fly Fishing. How are you doing, Matt?
I'm doing pretty good, Marvin. How are you?
I'm just trying to stay out of trouble, and it's interesting. We were talking before we started recording. You kind of had odd weather in your part of the world. What are the fishing conditions like these days?
Yeah, so it's been a little, it's kind of been in a bit of a holding pattern, relative to water temps and flows and all that kind of thing. The last report we did, we still had fairly warm water temps. They're pushing 60 degrees, and it's cooled down quite a bit. We've gotten a good bit of rain, and rivers went up and dropped 6-7 degrees in water temp. Talking the smallmouth rivers here, and they're back down to pretty fishable levels now. They're still a little on the high side of full, but trout rivers are in great shape. The new and a few of the other smallmouth rivers are, like I said, still a little high, a little dingy, a little full, but we're slated for another, inch to inch and a half of rain tomorrow. And today was the last day in a warming trend. We had like 65 degree temps today here. And I think it's supposed to drop back down into the, upper 40s and 50s for highs the next couple of days. But hopefully it doesn't set us back too far.
Yeah, and it looks like maybe the long-term trend will be a little bit warmer than that. Assuming you don't get blown out on the smallmouth water, I assume that means that the fish, to the extent they were starting to move up the water column, they've probably started to go back down to the bottom. So if you're fishing for smallmouth now, are you really having to kind of prime off the bottom a little bit, or are they still chasing streamers?
Yeah, it depends on the day, the trend and all that. Even if you've got cooler temps, if they're rising because you've got a succession of warmer days, they'll be a little more active. You get a cold snap the day after, they'll be a little more slow, and you'd have to dredge them up with crayfish or bottom dredging flies. But certainly as it starts to get warmer, even now in the mid 50s, if we haven't had some, funky cold front roll through that sort of freezes them up a little bit, they should be chasing streamers, no problem.
Got it. And does that also mean they're kind of moving out of those kind of traditional kind of slow back eddy kind of pre-spawn areas too?
So, females should be still in those areas. As we get kind of into the upper 50s, I think just because of, sort of how late in the month we are here and all that, since we almost got there a couple of weeks ago, we should start having some fish moving into spawning locations. And we've seen that a little bit the last couple of weeks, but it should really sort of pick up in the next week or two, given we have good temps. But definitely, fish should be in those, sort of what you mentioned, those slower, deeper current seams sort of adjacent to spawning habitat. And then, you'll have males moving in early to scope out nests and new nests. I have a feeling they probably swept a few nests, a couple of weeks ago. But they'll be in there kind of scouting things out. And so those two habitat types are where I'd focus right now.
Got it. And can you share any tips for folks about how to fish for the smallmouth, but, not affect their spawning so that we see strong recruitment numbers year after year?
Yeah. So, it does help if sort of on your river where fish traditionally spawn, but just sort of avoiding those areas is the way that I would go about it. The females are in the spawning area near the nest for a day or two, and then they'll move off into deeper water to recover. The males sit on the nest for usually it's like 12 days to 2 weeks as the eggs are fertilized and then hatch, and then they'll guard fry for a little bit after they hatch, and then they take off. So the danger of fishing for spawning fish is relative to fishing for males, because when they're on the nest guarding fry and guarding eggs, they're very aggressive. And pretty much anything that comes near their nest, they'll come out and swipe at or eat, just out of an aggressive nature, or just being protective. And fighting that fish and taking it off of its nest theoretically opens it up to nest predation, and you lose eggs to sunfish species and salamanders and crayfish and that kind of thing. So if you can just avoid the areas where fish are actively nesting, and fish, deeper water, sort of the same places you were fishing during the pre-spawn, and just not really beating up those spawning sites. I don't think you're doing anything wrong. You're not risking taking a male off of their nest. So I think you're in good shape.
Yeah. And how do you identify those sites? Do they look kind of like trout red? So you'll see these sort of, I guess they're bigger than a dinner plate, but these kind of cleaned out circles. Yeah.
Usually, generally about the size of a dinner plate, maybe a little smaller sometimes, but they're always going to be in areas that are protected from current. Usually in a river, it's in, a few feet of water, not super deep. Usually, it depends on the river and the structure of the river, but behind big ledge systems or points in the river, where you have current wrapping around a point and flat, still water, that's sort of a consistent depth on the bank. And you can usually see a fish sitting on it. As once the fry hatch, they're a really dark black color. And like a day or two after they hatch, they almost just look like, it looks like the nest is just black because they're all sitting there in a ball. And then as they mature, they'll kind of spread out, and you'll usually see a male sort of near that ball of fry. And yeah, so that, I think that sums it up.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I guess, in terms of the trout streams in your area, to the extent that you don't get blown out in the next 24 to 48 hours, I assume it's probably, nymphing a little bit in the morning, but then the fish are really starting to look up later in the day.
Yeah, it's been really good. We've had, again, a little chillier mornings, but we've had lots of bugs around the last couple of weeks. March browns and quill gordons are still around. Some Isonychias and some little yellow stoneflies. Really, you can, depending on the creek, you can catch fish on a lot of different dry flies. If you want to fish a dry dropper system, you could fish something like a smaller stimulator or a humpy, or, and then, the actual sort of imitative bugs like the March browns or the quill gordons, depending on what you see on the water, will take fish too. But yeah, it's been really good. And even with the creeks a little full right now, they're still fishing really well. And again, the thing about rain on our trout streams is it tends to run out pretty quick. Even if we get all, the whole 1.5 inches in the headwaters of some of these second order streams, they should be fishable again within a couple of days. So nothing too permanent.
Absolutely. And, folks, remember, we love questions at the Articulate Fly. If you'll send them to us on the Articulate Fly Facebook page, we'll make sure to include them in one of the fishing reports. And if we use your question, I'll send you some Articulate Fly swag, and you'll get it into a drawing for some pretty cool stuff from Matt at the end of the fishing season. And we were talking before we started recording, Matt, that since you're not guiding right now, you've been catching up on your writing assignments. What have you been writing recently for the Rural Virginian?
Yeah, I've been trying to. The column that's coming out this week is about, we have a pretty cool nonprofit here local to Southwest Virginia called the Blue Ridge Discovery Center. And they are devoted to outdoor education. They do a lot of programming. I usually help out in the summertime. They do like a week-long fly fishing camp where the campers will go, fish mountain streams and ponds and tie flies. And they usually do a new river float, which I usually help out with. But it's a really cool organization, and their sort of hallmark fundraising event is called the Mount Rogers Naturalist Rally, which has been going on since, I believe, 1974. It was started by the Forest Service. And then when Blue Ridge Discovery Center started back in 2008, I think it took them, it was like 6 years. They started running the rally in 2014, and now it's kind of their pet project. And like I said, their primary fundraising source. But it's typically a weekend full of field trips in the Mount Rogers National Recreation Area. We'll have fisheries biologists out there demonstrating backpack electrofishing, birders, usually professors or biologists from the area, leading nature hikes, focusing on bird identification or native plants, that kind of thing. They'll hike Mount Rogers, which, is our highest point here in Virginia, and talk about highland weather and climate and all that kind of thing. So usually a lot of cool things going on. This year with the COVID-19 climate that we're living in, they've moved it online. So there are not as many cool hands-on, in-person kind of activities, but the flip side is that now it's available to pretty much anybody because you can hop on and do it online. And they're still doing, they got webinars from people who would have otherwise led guided hikes or classes and that kind of thing. And a couple other cool things. I've donated a float trip to their raffle, and they're raffling a lot of other cool things off too. So that's an interesting one. I've also got definitely, I think by the time this podcast airs, it'll be out. It's just a review on the Yeti Loadout Go Box, which I got my hands on last year. It's a waterproof, durable gear box that the longer I have it, the more I find, different uses for it. And I use it pretty much every day when I'm guiding and fishing these days. So that's another cool one. And I think that's all I got for you.
Well, that's awesome, and I'll drop links to all that good stuff in the show notes. And before I let you hop, why don't you let folks know where they can find you so they can book you? Because I think everyone's hopeful here at the end of April that we're starting to get kind of towards the end of, the worst of the sheltering in place.
Yeah, man. So I'm certainly going to be, just kind of evolving operational policies as we go. But currently, I've got some trips on the books for the end of May, wade trips that I'm hoping to be able to do. Here in Virginia, we're starting to open up some businesses again on May 8th. So definitely hopeful to be able to do some wade trips towards the end of May. And then certainly starting June 10, which is the end of our stay-at-home order, I'm hoping to be back on the river floating with clients for the rest of the smallmouth season. But the website is mattreillyflyfishing.com, and all my contact info is on there. So, feel free to get in touch with me however you want. Even if you don't want to go on a trip, it's nice to talk to people about fishing every once in a while these days. So, love to hear from you.
There you go. And folks, if you can get out and fish, that's great. Please do it responsibly. Look out for yourself, look out for your family, look out for your fellow man, and we'll all be together on the other side of this thing on the water very soon. Tight lines, everybody. Tight lines, Matt.
All right. Thanks, Marvin.